Good morning, I'm Saini at the University of Canberra and I'm speaking with Michelle Grattan. This is our weekly conversation about politics in Australia. Good morning, Michelle.
Hi, Deep.
A bit cooler than yesterday.
Yes, much better weather.
Yeah. Well, not in politics though. Let's talk about the March of the Independents. We have three high-profile independents who have emerged in the blue-chip Liberal seats. This is, aside from this being a problem for the Liberal Party, what are the chances of these three candidates winning?
I think their chances are varied. Zali Steggall in the seat of Warringah, challenging Tony Abbott, has, I'd say, a reasonable chance because there is a lot of anti-Abbott feeling. There's a big campaign against the former Prime Minister. Now, I wouldn't write him off in any circumstances. He's a wily politician, very experienced, and has been doing a lot of work in his electorate. But nevertheless, that's a contest to watch. As for the other two, there's Josh Frydenberg under challenge in Kooyong. I think that Oliver Yates, the independent, high-profile independent running there, doesn't have a prospect of winning. He's high-profile on energy issues and he has been a member of the Liberal Party, but nevertheless I think that the Treasurer has a big primary vote there and he's safe. The third candidate, high-profile independent, is of course Julia Banks. She's now the member for Chisholm. She's jumped ship from the Liberal Party last year. She's on the crossbench, so she's in Parliament, but she's going for Greg Hunt's seat of Flinders, and I think that that's an uphill battle for her because the Labor vote there is quite substantial. She would need to come in second to have any chance, and I can't see that happening.
So let's just set aside the chances of their wins. In another way, it reflects on the Liberal Party. Now, we have these three candidates who either are connected with the Liberal Party in one way or the other, or they share values with the Liberal Party, and yet they would rather run as independents than use the party machine for support. What does that say about the state of the Liberal Party at this point?
It tells us how fractured the Liberal Party is because all of them are emphasising the divisions in the Liberal Party. They're talking about the toxic climate in the party. They're saying it's out of touch with public opinion on climate change because it's not doing more in that area. So they are providing critiques of the Liberal Party and they're saying it needs reform and that people who would normally vote Liberal but are discontented should send a strong message to the party.
Let's go a bit deeper into this idea of a fractured party or fractured coalition. A number of ministers have decided that they are not going to run. The latest ones being Keenan and Nigel Scullion. It is normal before an election that some people would decide that they want to quit politics, they want to go and do other things, but the number has been quite large and it continues. How damaging is this to the coalition and particularly to the senior partners in the coalition, the Liberal Party?
I think it is quite damaging because while, as you say, it's normal before an election that people review their situation and some decide to leave, it's a logical time, it's all a matter of context. The coalition points out that a lot of Labor people are going, but it sort of doesn't matter how that looks because everyone knows that if they stayed, they would quite likely be in government soon. So they're not going because they see the ship going down. Whereas on the coalition side, it does look or can be portrayed as people deserting the sinking ship. And while they've all got individually reasonably convincing stories. For example, Michael Keenan at the weekend was saying, well, when I started, I didn't have any children, and now I've got 4 children and I want to see more of the family. And I come from Western Australia, which of course is a long trip and means that separation from family tends to be rather longer. Now, that's all very well and convincing in itself, but put in the wider context of a struggling government and other people leaving, then it really doesn't look so good. So I think it's unfortunate for the government that these high-profile people are going. The other point is that they're still remaining in their jobs. Unlike, for example, Kate Ellis, a Labor frontbencher who's going, she announced a year or so ago that she was off, and she's still in the parliament till the election, but she's off the front bench. These people remain ministers, but they're lame ducks in their area.
That poses problems for governance at this point, doesn't it?
I think it does, because people are obviously dealing with them in their jobs, but they can't really speak for the future. Now, that's the case, I guess, before any election, but it exacerbates that problem.
It is still early stages, but I see signs of a negative campaign, particularly the recent emphasis of Liberal Party on what can really be called scare tactics, painting a picture that if Labour came into power, the economy would sink. How effective or not can such a campaign be?
I think it can be quite effective. I'm not saying it's going to be particularly decisive in this election, because there are many things going on, but the coalition believes it's the best thing going for it, and I think that judgment is probably right. We've seen this week the campaign emphasising that Labor would allegedly weaken the economy. Christopher Pyne took that to the extent of saying there would be a recession under Labor, which did cause some problems because Scott Morrison had carefully not gone that far, but also Labor's policy on negative gearing, a crackdown there, a crackdown on franking of dividends in certain circumstances, abolition of cash refunds. These policies do open the way for, or the opportunity for, a scare campaign, I think, and particularly negative gearing, where circumstances have changed since Labor initially announced that policy before the last election. Now then, house prices were going up, so the effect of a crackdown would be very limited. Now in Sydney and Melbourne, house prices are going down. People who have houses are worried about their value, and therefore the negative gearing policy, while I think it's a rational policy, does have to be sold in a colder climate, as it were. So the scare campaign will be ramped up. We've seen this from the start of the year. It will have some effect. The question is how much effect.
Well, we'll wait for that colder climate. I'm not optimistic that's going to prevail in this election year. But thank you, Michelle. Look forward to talking to you again next week.
Thank you, Deep.